It's Taunt, but he does have the odd Paladin and the odd Rogue.
Yeah, so we are going to move in to our first match between these two. Falcone, he's going to be playing from Poland at the moment. So sorry if his webcam's a little bit shaky, but I'm sure we'll manage to get through it. So we're starting off first with the Paladin versus the Mage.
Yeah, I think the Paladin will probably have the most trouble getting a win against Bilbz's lineup, because Bilbz does have big Spell Mage, Control Priest, Evenlock, and the Quest Warrior. They're all very good decks against the Paladin. So it's very troubling for Falcone, but if he manages to pull a win with his Paladin, then this whole series could swing on its head.
Yeah, certainly could. So back he goes out, as it does. And this is where we're more than likely going to be seeing, I'm sure, Protector or possibly Lost in the Jungle first, or even coin out Lost in the Jungle along with both of them. So then you have 4 1-1s on the board, which could be an option, as he does go for the first one, but keeps the coin in that scenario. Would you personally have went for the coin with the double Lost in the Jungle or the Lost in Jungle plus Righteous Protector combo?
As we can see, there was a Doomsayer drawn, but yes, I much prefer to hold on to the coin. One, because it's better against the Doomsayer on 2, and also because you potentially want to coin level up into... yeah, you want to basically hero power into coin level up and push as much damage as quickly as possible. And we do see Falcone picked up the Purifier's Maul. It's probably the best Maul in this matchup, because if you manage to get the Purifier's Maul on your 1-1s a turn before you level up, basically Bilbz will have to spend 2 turns clearing 1 board instead of using 1 AoE card.
Yeah, so this is where he's going to start putting the pressure on with these recruits. And what we know that Doomsayer is going to be in hand, that goes out, but there's got to be an answer, however, on the side of Falcone, as he does have that Purifier's Maul, which is going to be able to clear out that Doomsayer.
Yeah, this Purifier's Maul cleans up against the Doomsayer perfectly. The 5 1-1s trade in plus the 2 damage Maul. The only bad thing is that you can't just go straight level up next turn. You do have to wait, since you're only on 4 mana. But for 4 mana, Bilbz can't really do anything to clear off all these Divine Shields and set up for the Dragon's Fury next turn. And it's looking pretty rough already this early into the game.
Yeah, this is where the big, massive control factor that Mage has. We know that Big Mage has all of these control spells that work so well against many aggro decks, such as the Paladin that we're seeing. But with that Divine Shield, that's going to cause a little bit of issues, because that is eventually that's going to essentially evade the Dragon's Fury, which is going to come down in turn 5. So that still gives Falcone a bit more damage on the board to push face, and if he can get down possibly to level up, or the Fungal Mancer, if he doesn't want to show the level up early on, that could be another option, because Falcone has to know there's going to be at least a Dragon's Fury, a Blizzard, or a Flame Strike in that hand.
Yep, so Falcone just decides to hero power here, of course, just to set up for this, this level up. And of course, Bilbz only has the Dragon's Fury in hand, and that only cleans up 3 1-1s. It does leave 3 on the 3 other 1-1s on board, which can get leveled up, meaning Falcone can push 12 damage. And if Bilbz doesn't pick up another AoE next turn, then this might just be game.
Yeah, that might as well be game, but just talking about Paladin, it's always been a deck that I've known to have so much board refill, because you have cards there, such as Lost in the Jungle. Even though it's already been played, you can just build a big massive board with even Righteous Protectors, and the hero power just constantly gives you minions that you can then adapt with Fungal Mancer, for example, which is a great card. Whenever it first came out, it was never really a card that stood out, but definitely with this new meta with particularly Zoolocks running around, Fungal Mancer has definitely found a way into many top-tier decks, which it's quite surprising for me. A 5-mana 2/2, it's not nothing that you know, to go crazy about, but the fact that you can apply lethal damage especially as well, and push through taunts, it's so huge.
Yeah, Fungal Mancer is definitely a very key card that many people play in these more board-based centric decks, such as Zoo, Odd Paladin, and also Odd Rogue. Falcone here just counting up the damage, seeing if he has lethal here.
Make sure he counts right. Well played coming out as well.
Speak your piece.
And yeah, it does look like Falcone has exact lethal here. the Fungalmancer. He pushes 10 from the 2 dudes, plus the 2 from the weapon, and wow, this very quick game. Turn 6, lethal.
That is the definition of an aggro paladin. That is exactly what you want to do in terms of that deck that you're trying to just push through as much as you can. That's why we see it a lot on ladder, because you can just quickly shut down your opponents as quickly as it can. If it doesn't go in your way, you can just concede and then reload, and that's typically how I'm sure that's how you would climb, preferably with the quicker deck, so you can get as many games as you want. I know that some of the production staff as well, we were having a good discussion about that, which is why typically we see so much aggro running about on the ladder, because it's quick to use, it's easy, and Falcone has just proven why it is so good in the current meta.
Yep, just hit them in the face and hope they die.
Hit them in the face. Why is worse from Clean Sheet?
But yeah, that was definitely a very key deck to have won with from Falcone. Of course, like every deck's key, but getting the Paladin through is especially key.
Yeah.
He did, however, get probably the best matchup the Paladin could have queued into, the Mage, because if he'd queued it into the Warlock or the Priest, he would have had a bit more trouble, I'd say. But it's not all over for Bilbz, because there is an odd rogue in Falcone's lineup, and that could also have trouble against all of Bilbz's decks.
Yes. Yeah, we've talked about the control matchup that's been brought that Falcone has to deal with. We know that Rogue does have a good bit of aggro, but it's more slow paced compared to the Paladin, where Paladin's all about creating a big board as fast as you can. Rogue is more about building up big minions and then just going face, and then hopefully the hero power will do the work in the late game whenever you can just keep pushing 2 damage every single turn, which it's almost as if you're having that hunter ability, but you can also then also attack minions as well.
Yeah. So Bilbz decides to go with the mage once again, whereas Falcone is just queuing up the odd rogue, as we just talked about. So looking at Falcone's hand, I'd expect him to probably keep this Argent Squire and the Hench Clan Flag. Of course, you don't want Baku. That's probably the worst card the deck.
The patches of the current meta.
Literally the patches. Even Gen's okay, but Baku is really not okay.
9-man 70. You're never going to be able to play it in Rogue, because by the time you get there, hopefully you've killed your opponent at that stage.
And sometimes you just much rather just have the dagger up instead.
Yeah, instead of playing the Baku, you just rather get the dagger up. And this is going to be a good start for Falcone. He has the 1-1, which is the main thing. If you could play a minion on turn 1, such as Dire Mole, such as the Argent Squire, which you've seen, then you dagger up in 2, and then eventually you start getting your Fug down, you start punching face, you get the buffs in from the Fug, and it has been such a crucial card for a class such as Rogue. Whenever it first came out, a lot of people were saying, oh, it's not going to be that good, it's only a free, but with decks such as Odd Rogue, it has proven so good.
So Bilbz choosing to coin out the Ooze right now, not choosing to save onto the coin, which is quite interesting. But seeing as though he also has a Stonehill, I guess this is his reasoning. He just coins out the Glutinous Ooze and then plays the Stonehill next turn. Although this also means he cannot coin out the Jaina on turn 8.
That play is essentially the exact same play that we've seen Deadrod do to board control. And this is pretty much going to have the exact same effects that Falcone has to deal with, because he's going to lose his weapon. He then didn't get to play his Fog and free, has to then weapon up again. And then he's just going to have to play his Fog a turn later than he would have wanted to.
Yeah, coining the Ooze out was very much to disrupt Falcone's turn. I mean, he couldn't Hench Clan Fog, and he did just opt to re-dagger, and that's quite a big tempo loss, because it means the Bilbz can just play down the Stonehill defender on an empty board, uncontested.
He has a couple of things to work with. He does have the Fug, which is going to be played down. He has the Cold Blood, which he is going to use, so that then clears away the Stonehill, creates a nice open path for his Fug to start doing work. He gets a punch to the face, gets rid of that armor that the Ooze did gain for him, and this is where Falcone's going to start to try and build his board. But is this possibly a turn too late, because we're starting to see a lot of the pieces that mages need? This is where it's going to start to get scary for Falcone.
Well, looking at Falcone's hand, he doesn't really have the Cobalt Scalebane that you'd ideally want this turn, just for another big minion to play down, along with the Hench Clan Folk buffing it up even further. Although he does have some nice free drops like he can play. He just picked up the Blink Fox. He can play that along with the Dagger. Dagger means that the Hedge Clan Folk does grow to a 5/4. It doesn't really bring it out of range of any AoE, since even Dragon's Fury picking up a Polymorph will still clear it. But we'll see what this Blink Folk gets us. Mirror Entity. I think Mirror Entity is probably one of the worst cards you can potentially get, since if you do play the Mirror Entity, you always leave with the possibility that your opponent plays down a Doomsayer, and the Doomsayer gets copied and your board gets wiped for free.
Even if an Arcane Artificer gets played down, it's not useful to Ogrug because they do not run spells that Artificers can get used to. So, yeah, like you said, probably one of the worst ones he could have gotten. Mukla is going to be picked up, and I believe Falcone's thinking about playing it. He's just going to hold back. He could... yeah, it's more than likely it's going to be this play. He could have went for the Entity plus SI if he wanted to go for that route, but he is going to go for the Mukla, so that gives the 2 bananas to Bilbz, and we're going to see where this goes.
Mukla is really good in the Odd Rogue because you basically... It's a board-centric deck, so you're always controlling the board, so you don't really care if you give them bananas because most likely they won't have a board anyway to use the bananas on. Although Bilbz does have this this taunt that you can buff up to a 5/4, which contests the Mukla really nicely, which will probably end up forcing out this Iron Beak Owl from Falcone just to get through this taunt and push through the damage. Also, silencing it means that it won't get the death rattle effect, so it won't heal himself for free, which is also really big.
Especially whenever the Iron Beak, it's not going to be used on really anything else inside of Bilbz deck. You could use it in the Barongeddon, but still, it's only Barongeddon. It's not as if it's the end of the world if you let its effect go off. Even Artificer, it's not the end of the world. So this is really where the ideal opportune moment for the Owl to go down and gets rid of the buff, gets rid of the taunt, get rid of the death rattle. So, like you said, the Owl is probably going to be the play here for Falcone. We've seen him go for the Blink Fox. First gets the Familiar off that, which essentially is going to be a 2/2 at this stage because he's never going to be able to win against a big spell mage.
So, I actually quite liked just redaggering there because playing this Blink Fox does actually open yourself up to a lot of AoE options. Whereas, and you also don't get to push the 2 damage from Dagger this turn.
Bilbz isn't exactly happy with that. It's feels bad for Bilbz. Is that what we're going to say?
Yeah. Although he does have both Artificers in hand into Jaina, meaning he can gain a load of armor, and if he picks up another AoE spell next turn, he can go Artificer, play the AoE into Jaina, and that's really powerful, and it does put Falcone on quite a clock to finish out this game relatively quickly, or else the Jaina Water Elementals start closing out the game.
That's always a time limit that whenever you're playing against mages is you have to always play around the Jaina. Whenever the Jaina goes down, it's going to be extremely hard for you to come back because then the Elementals come out. Even Bargeddon gets the big buff where sometimes you've seen mages heal all the way back up to full if it's a big open board. It excels quite well against decks such as Token Druid, where there's a lot of 2/2s which Barongeddon excels at clearing out. So it's always going to be a time limit for a lot of rogues to start working towards killing that mage before the Jaina does get thrown out, because Jaina is, I would say, arguably top 10 cards inside the meta currently.
Jaina is definitely a very good card. It's very powerful, especially if you can play it on turn 9. Bilbz didn't, however, pick up any AoE cards, so he's going to have quite a tough time dealing with this board. He can play this Barongeddon down, but that is a Mirror Entity.
This is where things start to become fun. We thought that Mirror Entity wasn't going to be probably the worst pickup. This seems to be possibly working in Falcone's favour because he now has a 7-attack minion on the board. He also has the charge, so he's going to start counting. I believe that... Is that going to be lethal?
This is a lot of damage. This is lethal for sure.
Yeah. Fungalmancer Mana said it was going to be good, and it does prove that Fungalmancer does save the day, and Falcone is going to get another point on the board.
I definitely was not expecting that. Yeah, that win kind of came out of nowhere.
Mirror Entity, man. Don't sleep on it.
Bilbz didn't even really check if it was Mirror Entity. I think he just forgot that card was a thing, maybe. Yeah. Because he could have tried to check if it was Counterspell or not, or even Spellbender by playing the banana on one of your enemy minions. And if it wasn't that, then you could consider the possibility of being Mirror Entity, and then maybe even just play the Doomsayer down and ping.
Yeah. Possibly could have been anticipating the Explosive Ruins as well, which could have been an option, so playing the Baron Geddon just as, yeah, let's play it, because he would have played it whenever he had the Jaina down, primarily, so he just wanted, just throw away the Geddon, it keeps us alive, possibly, gets rid of the Explosive Ruins, then we know it isn't Counterspell. In that case, it was probably the one that he was not expecting. It is going to be Mirror Entity, so...
It was definitely very risky. I think, personally, I'd like to see the Doomsayer probably just played down and just pinged, because he was coming into the Jaina turn. If he didn't die that turn, then it was a high chance that the Jaina would just carry him to victory, and also his opponent would have to deal with that Doomsayer, otherwise the board would have been dealt with. But going on to the next game, Falcone actually won with both his aggro decks, so from a good scenario into a really dire scenario for Bilbz right now. He's going to have to try 3-0 this Taunt Druid.
Yeah, Taunt Druid is going to be his last deck for Falcone. It was Let Through. So I believe it was actually Let Through instead of the Death Rattle Hunter, which I was actually really excited to see possibly being brought out, because it's an archetype that I'm not very familiar with, because you said it's very, very new. A lot of people are starting to play it, but Taunt Druid, I have a lot of experience with Taunt Druid. It's a deck that I've climbed with quite a lot. It's very, very simple to play. You have cards there such as Dragon Hatcher, which is a very big card in this deck. You have Oakheart as well, which can get your Dragon Hatcher plus your Hadronox plus a Sleepy Dragon. A lot of fun with this deck.
Yeah, basically, as Taunt Druid has his name written on its tin, basically.
So there's taunts and Taunt Druid?
Yeah, there's taunts and Taunt Druid. You just want to play your taunts every single turn and play your Hadronox, kill it off, and get more taunts. We did see Bilbz decide to keep the Skulking Geist. Keeping that's very important in this matchup, because playing Skulking Geist takes away the Naturalizes, also takes away the Spell Stones from the Druid, meaning that they can't go Hadronox Naturalize. So they just have to play down the Hadronox naturally and then wait till the next turn to kill it off. And that could also mean that Bilbz has the opportunity to polymorph the Hadronox, which is very vital in the matchup.
So he does draw a Dragon Hatcher, so that isn't going to be drawn by the Oakheart, which is, for some cases, it would be a bit worrisome. But for Falcone, I actually believe that he actually runs 2 Dragon Hatchers, so that's not a big issue, because typically you're only ever playing the 2 for the one of them, because then if you draw one, you still have another one to fall back on, of course. But that is being said, he has to draw his Oakheart first before he can get that Dragon Hatcher down as well. We're seeing the Stonewall come out, we're seeing the Familiar go out, just a very on-standard curve for mages. This is what they do every single time they play.
Picks up the Saronite as well, you can play that down next turn and curve it into the Skulking Geist. And also Bilbz, once again, does have the Frostlich Jaina. That's probably, I think it's the 3rd game he's had the Jaina in hand, but hopefully this game he'll actually be able to play it down and just not die beforehand.
Another very big card that we see on the side of Bilbz, the Skulking Geist. That is going to be detrimental for Falcone, because it gets rid of his Spellstones, which is a great removal tool, and also get rid of his Naturalizes, which is going to be his main way to kill off his Hadronox and then get them back again. So if that Skulking Geist come down on curve at 6, it's going to cause a lot of troubles for Falcone.
Yeah, most definitely. Falcone, however, does have the Nourish, which of course is key, because you do want to ramp up to 9 mana as quickly as possible, or even 8 mana. He also has this Wild Growth that you can opt to play, although I don't really see a reason why you would need to play this Wild Growth, since you're already at 8 mana next turn and you have the coin, so you can potentially play all the cards that you want to be able to play, since nothing in your deck costs 10 mana, and he can just use this Wild Growth later on to cycle into another card.
Geist comes down, that gets rid of his Naturalizes. Falcone doesn't seem to be too bothered about that. You can see he's very cool, calm, collected. He knows that there's other ways to get rid of that because he has the cube in hand, so whenever the Hadronox does come out, he can cube it, gets the minions onto the board as well. He's actually going to use his coin to get the Dragon Hatcher out, so this is going to then get his big, massive sleepy dragon out. Could have also been a Drake being pulled because we know that there's the 2 big dragons as well, that being the Drake and also that being the dragon, or the sleepy dragon, as Bilbz looking not too good there, bud.
So yeah, you always want to play the Dragon Hatcher first because you want to pull the dragons from deck before you draw them in hand. And also there's potential they stick on board, which unfortunately it didn't, so I only pulled that 1 sleepy dragon. So I think all is going according to plan for Bilbz. He has all the key cards in this matchup. He's played the Geist, he has the Jaina on 9, he has the Geddon to heal up in case he gets low health. He also has all the Voodoo dolls, so if one big minion keeps coming down at a time, he can just deal with that and keep pushing through this chip damage from the Skulking Geist and all the little minions, which does add up because Falcone is on 18 HP, and that's relatively low.
Yeah, every little helps, but it is Druid. It has the armor gain from cards such as Ferocious Howl, such as Branching Path, so it can gain itself back. All of that armor essentially gain back the life.
Yep.
Drake does clear away that board, sets up actually pretty nicely, but the Jane is going to come out, so this is where Falcone is going to have to start making moves. He's going to have to start digging through that deck, get his Hadronox, get even his Oak Heart out, which probably would be the best play for him.
Yeah. The one good thing is that Bilbz doesn't currently have a copy of Polymorph in his hand, so if Falcone does pick up the Hadronox and he decides to play that down, there's actually no real good answer from Bilbz.
This will be a Water Elemental, just going to make another Water Elemental especially because we know that Frost Elementals are very, very strong at trading into minions and just creating more of themselves with the hero power. Dragon's Fury as well, 2 of them still in the hand, so they could be played out. Try and clear the board if they manage to land possibly the Flame Strike. That would probably be the best one at this stage for Bilbz. If he gets that Flame Strike, it sets, clears the Dragon Hatcher, clears one of the Drakes, and then sets up an easy ping for the other one. Probably his best case scenario. If that doesn't go well, if he draws, for example, the Polymorph, hits for 4, still can make one.
Yep, so Bilbz is deciding to use the Dragon's Fury here. There's 3 possibilities he can get. He can get the Blizzard for 6, but he would like to get exactly the Polymorph. Yeah. Polymorph's probably the best one here, or even Flame Strike. Either one would
have been the same outcome.
Yeah, it would have been the same outcome. He would have cleared the board and also gotten a fresh Water Rally. Also been able to play the Stoneholder Defender. Wasn't quite sure what he picked. It was really quick, but yeah, he did pick another Stoneholder Defender. Which I guess if you keep doing that, it's infinite value.
Yeah. Same with Primordial Glyphs as well. Looking back at Quest Mage, if you get Primordial Glyph in the Primordial Glyph, that was probably one of the best things that could have happened to you.
Polymorph, please.
He really wants it bad. Yeah. That's one thing that I love about Hearthstone, is that we have player cameras. It's something that we don't have in any other Premiership games, because this is a 1v1 game, so you do have that little bit of leeway to go for the player cameras.
We have the time to write it down.
Yeah, it's great seeing the player cameras. I love the reactions. Bilbz, he loves writing himself down. Falcone, just so calm and so cool. He knows that even if he loses this matchup, he still can fall back, go for the Taunt Druid again, go against possibly then the Warlock or the Priest, which he still has a fairly good matchup against.
Yep, and as you can see, this is probably the best Alex Strauss you can get. There's no minions on board, you just slap down an 8/8 and start hitting.
Good pickup.
It's quite a decent pickup, although most of the minions have already been pulled. So I guess the O card does guarantee that he pulls the Hadronox, but he's also taking a lot of damage in the backswing. He's taking 8 + 5, that's 13.
Does he pull the Polymorph?
Plus
no, he doesn't. That was
2 more. It's not quite lethal. No. It's 15 damage, but yep.
That's one thing about Mage, is that they don't have any direct damage to the face other than minions. It's typically the spells they run is board clear. Double Arcane Artificer is going to gain back a lot of armor, which is something that Bilbz dearly needs in this scenario, because he didn't manage to get his Polymorph, so the cube can go down.
look at Falcone's reaction. He's so shocked that there's no polymorph in hand, he just can't believe it.
Oh, that is a happy caster if I've ever seen one.
Yeah.
And this is where we're going to see the big, massive board of taunts go down. If Bilbz, he still needs a polymorph, because if he manages to polymorph the cube, that is essentially, I would say, game, set, match for Falcone, because then he doesn't really have any way back onto the board.
But Bilbz did actually choose to use up a Blizzard there. Maybe prematurely. He opted to push the damage through more than just holding onto the Blizzard and just freezing a minion with the Water Elemental. But now he doesn't have a way to freeze this board from Falcone. Although he can gain a lot of armor if he just Flame Strikes here. This is a lot of damage. This is frightening.
That's a lot of damage on the board, that's for sure.
And also, this cube does have 2 more Hadronoxes in, so if Bilbz doesn't ever pick up a polymorph, then Falcone can just keep refilling the board. He also has these Witching Hours, which now only gets a Hadronox, since that's the only beast that died. So if he picks up the second cube, he can refill again. It was looking quite good for Bilbz, but just 1 card missing from his hand, and this game's all up in flames. Like,
especially whenever he's running 2 copies of polymorph, so he has double the chance of drawing one. So it's quite surprising that at this stage, where it's been a very long game, we haven't even seen one being drawn. It's very unlucky for Bilbz to essentially not draw the number 1 counter to a Hadronox other than Hex, which is why mages and shamans win against Taunt Druid most of the time. But because we're not seeing this polymorph being drawn, it's eating away at Bilbz. We can see him in his camera that he's not happy, and this is where the swipe's going to go down for Falcone. It gets rid of the Alex, also get rid of the Stonehill, so this allows them. He's actually going for the double swipe, so it clears off everybody else.
This clears off all the Water Elementals, meaning none of his minions can get frozen anymore. And also, there's not really any good way of generating another Water Elemental apart from this Voodoo Doll.
Does he go for the trade?
I think you do trade off this cube so you can get the Hadronoxes on board. However, now looking over the deck list from Falcone, there's actually not a second cube in Falcone's deck, so he can't actually destroy his cubes other than trading them into minions. But yeah, as you can see, Bilbz really wants a polymorph. There's one, but
maybe too late.
There is 2 Hadronoxes. But Bilbz should know that since he has burned both naturalizers and a cube's already been used, there isn't a real way of killing off the Hadronox, so the board should just be as it is for the time being.
We said that Bilbz really needed his polymorph. This is where Falcone really needs this cube to try and keep this last Hadronox alive. If we see possibly the second polymorph being drawn, that is essentially going to be GG for Falcone. Does he only run
he only runs 1 cube. So that's why I was saying it's quite rough. If you don't have the second cube, you can't really make a big board. So, I mean, he does have this branching pass, which potentially can do a lot of damage, but his board's just too small for it to get that much value right now. And if Bilbz can just pick up maybe another AoE, another polymorph, then he's in a very good position to take this game.
The big misplay that possibly could happen for Bilbz is if he plays his Baron and it kills the Hadronox before he gets the polymorph. That would be the only way I can see Bilbz losing this matchup, is if that happens. Other than that, Falcone's starting to draw nothing, so he's going to start fatiguing, and he's on very low life total, even though he has the armor gain with the Oaken Summons. That's going to gain him 12, branching pass as well with another 12, so 24. But at that stage, we're going to start seeing so many water elementals come down. We see the Voodoo Doll can be used for the Lich King, gets rid of that, creates a water elemental. This is where Jaina excels in the late game, because she can create so much value, and she's just going to keep healing herself back. Even if she fatigues, she has so much healing potential.
Yep. So, right now, these Witching Hours are 50-50 to pull a Hadronox, so I wouldn't even mind seeing Falcone just play these Witching Hours, just like to create a threatening board that can potentially kill Bilbz because he does have the anti-magic shell and the branching pass, which is a lot of damage if he has a wide board. Bilbz in a really tough position here. He can't really play down a big minion like Baron Geddon because, as you said, the Hadronox can just trade in, but he does want to clean up this board. He actually opts to just play the Dragon Call or Alana, just spawn a load of 5/5s, although the Hadronox can trade in. This Dragon Fury, along with the 5/5s, can potentially just clear up the board after Hadronox, and this Hadronox is also frozen for another turn. So there is a possibility that Bilbz just clears the board entirely and manages to push through all these 5/5s to face. If he picks up, say, more AoE. Although we can see the anti-magic shell coming down, so it's really hard to get through these taunts now they've been buffed 2 health each.
But there's still too much damage on the board for Bilbz where he can just send 2 dragons in, clears the Lich King, clears the big threat. And then, of course, he can just go ahead and Dragon's Fury the rest of them. Like you said, what other does he still have a Flame Strike in his deck, potentially? We know he has another Polymorph, so that could also be used.
If I remember correctly, I think he has 1 Blizzard, 1 Flame Strike left.
Still plenty.
Although my memory
yeah,
might not be correct.
Very, very smart play. Kills the Hadronox, so the Hadronox doesn't get a full board. It only gets potential and gets the Sleeper Dragon. Yes, still a very good one, but the Ironward Golems aren't as strong as possibly the Drakes he could have gotten, or even if the Lich King died, he could have gotten that back as well.
So yeah, that was actually very good by Bilbz. He set this up perfectly. He played the Voodoo Doll, the ping, and also he's going to set up for this Dragon's Fury as well. Although he can low roll if he does hit the second Polymorph, which means he won't clear the board. And that would be devastating because then Falcone could just play this branching pass and potentially kill Bilbz. Bilbz does in fact hit the Meteor, so it clears the entire board. Now Falcone just has to hope that these Witching Hours pull. Hadronoxes are not cheap. Oh, that's one.
He does get it, but how does he kill it before he fatigues to death? There's no real way that he can really get this out in time, especially whenever there's still 1 more Polymorph, so you always have to be cautious of that.
Though he is pushing 3 damage every turn, along with his Clusterness Ooze. Pushing another 3, and Bilbz actually can't play this Lich King down, he can't play the Baron Geddon down, or the Doomsayer. And probably not even the Abomination, since it does damage the Hadronox quite a lot, so although we say Falcone is running out of resources, as in he's only got 1 Hadronox, Bilbz also doesn't have any plays in his hand.
No, because he knows if he plays any of that, it's then just going to give Hadronox a free death, and then it's going to reload that board. And with only limited stuff, I believe he has a Meteor, a Blizzard, and also a Flame Strike still left. Even that there will be enough to hopefully win out Bilbz, and even by that time we see the big board come down. By that stage, there will be enough fatigue presence that Falcone is eventually going to kill himself by the end if he tries to start pushing damage with a Lich King, if he gets that back. Or even the Sleepy Dragon. Icefire is going to go out, and the Hadronox does attack that in.
Yep. I think that was a small misstep by Falcone there. He trades in the 3/3 Ooze, which means it can now get pinged off, and that's a free Water Elemental for Bilbz. Instead, he could have just traded in the Hadronox, also damaging it in the process. But as we can see, that's another Polymorph. Pick it up, that's the second one, so one of these Hadronox will get polymorphed. Also, this Water Elemental gets made, which can freeze one of the Hadronoxes. Yeah,
this is a very good situation for Bilbz because he can start freezing off these Hadronoxes, slows it down even more, just builds the fatigue up, which is the main thing that Bilbz is just trying to stall. He's trying to stall out all of this time for Falcone to eventually kill himself. We know there's still going to be 1 Polymorph to get rid of one of the Hadronoxes, and he has, I believe Falcone has, what's that, 2, 6, 8, plus that's 20 armor in his hand if he plays that correctly, so he still has a little bit of life total, so a lot to work with, still with Bilbz, but I don't think it's going to go Falcone's way.
Yeah, Bilbz just going through the motions here. He's like trying to set up lethal in 2 turns because he can only deal with 1 of these Hadronoxes at a time, and if he decides to, say, polymorph ping one of the Hydronoxes. He does spawn a water elemental, but the other Hydronox won't be dealt with. Although these Hydronoxes are on 4 HP, so they can't even basically suicide themselves into anything. I think that even if Bilbz decides to just pass his turn, I think he can win this in fatigue potentially, since Falcone is fatiguing for a lot next turn. I think it's potentially 4, and there's only so much armor you can gain.
Yeah, I believe that this turn he fatigues for 5, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep,
so
5.
It's just slowly starting to build up for Falcone. His Hadrox is going to be frozen. You can see the shake of his head. Falcone, he's starting to get a little bit more stressed than what he was. So
yeah, he was definitely happy when there was no polymorph.
The emotions are starting to run wild here. Bilbz, he was quite frustrated. What you see in his sign saying, "Where's my polymorphs?" Yep. He's looking a lot more cool. He's focused a lot more. And like you said, Bilbz, he can just pass up these turns because...
Yeah, he can just pass.
Yeah, because it's going to kill him. The fatigue's going to kill Falcone.
And if he's ever in any trouble, he can just play down the Baron Geddon and heal for a ton. And then Falcone should just die into fatigue the following turn.
Shaking head from Falcone just lets us know, yeah, it's not going to end well here at this stage. So we are going to be seeing a next game as well. So we're going to go into...
It won't be another 3-0.
Yeah, it won't be another 3-0. So we will be seeing a longer game. That's what you wanted. Because, of course, you like to analyze more of the stuff. You like to see how the battle goes between all the decks.
Yep. Just more Hearthstone's better.
Yeah, more Hearthstone.
For me, you, and the audience, of course. Maybe not us.
Maybe not us. That's not too late. It's not too late.
Yeah.
8:45 here in the UK, and that's going to be the concede. And Falcone is going to take his first loss of this series, and Bilbz is going to take his first W. Yep.
But yeah, it was always tough for the Taunt Druid, since Big Small Mage, of course, has all those polymorphs. He had the Geist early, he had of course, the Jaina early. So those are the key cards already in this matchup the Bilbz picked up. The only thing that he didn't pick up was the polymorph, but he eventually got there. So the 2 remaining decks for Bilbz are the Warlock and the Priest against the Taunt Druid. I think that the Priest will probably have the hardest time against the Druid, because the Druid, of course, you can just armor up, out of range of the Priest's potential burst. And also, Priest doesn't have a great way of dealing with all these taunts because they're all 4 attack and they're all just big.
Yeah, the only real way would be if he gets the Psychic Screams. That would be the main way. It just stalls it down for a little bit longer, but still...
But eventually they come back out.
They come back out eventually, and especially whenever we know that Falcone, he has the armor gain to succeed him throughout that fatigue. Like, he fatigued for quite some time. I believe it got up to fatigue 7 by the time that happened. So we will be jumping into our possible final matchup. It's still match point to Falcone, and it will be the even Warlock coming out from Bilbz. It's not going to be the Priest like you said.
Yep. So Bilbz here, he's playing the even lock. Even lock against Taunt Druid, it can go both ways, but I feel like it mostly depends on what the even lock's hand is. If even lock has all its threats early, then it can be tougher for the Druid to keep up with. Though we do see the Naturalize in Falcone's hand, which can deal with the first threat, which is most likely the Mountain Giant. And it can also potentially discard some, or overdraw some key cards.
Not a great opening hand for Falcone. He doesn't have any ramp at this moment. He still does have 2 Oaken Summons, which he can play down, but he does draw his Ironward Golem, so makes that a little bit redundant. Looking at the hand that Bilbz got, he has the Mountain Giant ready to be loaded up in turn 4. He has Twilight Drakes as well, Doomsayer to slow down, Plate of Beetles. So a good opening hand for Bilbz. Falcone, maybe not so much.
So we saw that Falcone hero pad and decided not to attack. This is because you don't really want to get the even lock low enough, so they play the 7/7 taunts. And also, Bilbz decides to play the Doomsayer here to settle for the Giant. And also so that Falcone couldn't potentially like coin, Oaken Summons, and play a minion.
So he's thinking about going for the Oaken Summons. This gets them the Ironward Golem. It doesn't, if he plays the other one, doesn't get him the other one because he has Drea. It's probably one of the most aggravating things that could happen. It's almost like drawing patches as well back in the old meta. So it's very tricky. He could use a Naturalize if he wants to on the Mountain Giant. He could also mill a couple of cards for the Warlock. He could mill possibly another Mountain Giant, could mill the Hooked Ravers, which you know is a very strong card because you do get them back off Gul'dan. Gul'dan isn't going to be milled because it was in the opening mulligan, one of the strongest cards that that Warlock has, because it just creates such a big board presence, and also the hero power is just insane for the value you get. It's like getting a life trigger for 2 mana.
Yeah. So Falcone actually decided to hold on to the Naturalize, probably to create a swing turn later on. And also, he didn't really want to waste the coin there. And I quite agree with that. You played the Ironwood Golem. This Ironwood Golem at least soaks the 8 damage from the Giant, and you're not in that much. You're not that pressured that much that you need to use the Naturalize right now, and you can also just keep playing taunts that soak the damage. Or if you draw a swipe, that could deal with the Giant instead of having to commit the Naturalize.
Lich King gets picked up, so that was going to be a good card to curve into eventually with the Nourish, so we're going to see that being coming out, and then set you up a nice Lich King, and the Naturalize is going to come out, and that's going to get rid of the Giant and mills a couple of cards as well, gets rid of Shroom Brewer, and it's also going to get rid of a Doomsayer, probably the cards that Bilbz doesn't mind losing.
Yep, so basically Falcone there just decided to sacrifice the 3/6 Ironwood Protector, or Ironwood Golem rather, for the coin. Since the coin can be used next turn to potentially play a 9-mana taunt, or he could just play the Lich King. Although Bilbz did draw most of his threats, he has 2 Twilight Drakes here, which are very tricky.
Menacing, yeah.
Yeah, very tricky to deal with. There's no silence in the Taunt Druid. The only hard removal is basically the Naturalize, or maybe in buff Spellstone.
Yeah.
But as we can see, he's already used one of those. And also, Falcone's always should be scared of the Black Knight, which is very common in Evenlock. And
is Bilbz running that?
Bilbz actually does not have the Black Knight, so that's one last card to be scared of. Although there can always be a silence, a Spellbreaker that could Spellbreaker the big taunt and just push through the damage.
So, looking at the Lich King card he's picked up with Death and Decay, what would you say is probably the best Lich King card that he could have picked up in this matchup against Evenlock? We know that there's cards such as Frostmourne, which is extremely strong, and even cards like Doompact can be very strong against Evenlock, which likes to play wide boards as well.
I feel like a lot of cards are strong. I think Army of the Dead's probably one of the strongest, because you can just Army of the Dead and pull out 5 big taunts, or even just like Hadronox, and you could end up just cubing that with
winning
coin.
It off that even, because you have such a big board presence. And
if it ever comes up to like turn 10, since he starts the coin, he can just go Army of the Dead, draw a Hadronox, coin, cube. That would have been insane. Unfortunately, he only got a Death and Decay, which is still okay here. It cleans up the board pretty well. With the swipe as well, you can go swipe, Death and Decay, and hero power, but also the Primordial Drake's really good here too, since everything was on 2 HP.
Still leaves the Giant up, so that's still going to be a menacing threat, but we know he can just go ahead for the swipe, Death and Decay, gets rid of that, no issues. Yep. Still waiting to draw either his Oakenheart or his Hadronox, of course, so it's always a bit of the waiting game for Falcone. It's just more of board control here for him. He's just trying to make sure there's no big threats going down. He has plenty of removal. He has a bit of draw potential as well with the Ferocious Howl. Oaken Summons doesn't get anything because, unfortunately, he did draw the other Ironwood Golem.
So, as I mentioned at the start of the series, Bilbz actually has a more anti-aggro lineup, so it makes sense that he doesn't have the Black Knight in his deck. But I guess he was wishing that he did have the Black Knight in this matchup, because the Black Knight is such a key card. You get to kill a taunt for free, and instead of trading all his minions into the taunt in the previous turn, he could have played the Black Knight there. But unfortunately, he doesn't have it, and he's actually quickly running out of threats to play on the board, and Falcone's still at a very healthy life total. He's at 39. It's even better than the start of the game.
Yeah, you can't complain with starting off with more health than what you had. We know that he still has a lot of draw potential with Oaken Summons, or should I say Armor collection with the Ferocious Howl, with the Oaken Summons, even with the Branching Pass that he'll draw later on. But still, this Mountain Giant seeming to be a big threat, just took 8 to the face at Falcone. Didn't want to exactly take. He draws both of his Sleepy Dragons, so Dragon Hatcher is becoming just more and more useless at this stage, because I also believe he's drawn 1 Drake as well, if I'm not... correct me on that, he has drawn 1 Drake.
Yep. He has drawn 1 Primordial Drake, that's correct. Actually interesting here that Falcone decides to swipe Hero Power this instead of just playing a Sleepy Dragon down. He does play, however, the Ironwood Golem, which is alright, but it can't actually attack next turn unless he decides to armor up in any way.
He could Ferocious Howl, it gives him the draw, lets his Golem to attack as well.
Also means he can't develop a Sleepy Dragon next turn.
Yeah, that's another thing as well, but I'm sure it's going to depend on what build play, more or less. He's going to go for the Infernal, so a 6/6, along with the Homunculus as well. So a nice board coming out from Bilbz, a good turn, gets him the board presence, and it does force then Falcone to go for the Sleepy Dragon.
Yep, this Spellstone is actually a pretty good pickup, because in future turns, if Falcone is ever feeling desperate for a 6 damage 1 mana spell, then he could go Ferocious Howl and Oaken Summons to buff this Spellstone up, which he does choose to do this this exact turn. Along with drawing 1 card, a lot of armor cleans up the 6/6, which is really nice. And Falcone really just does want to draw into the Hadronox to just refill his board very quickly.
Yeah, he's just waiting for the Hadronox, waiting for the Oakheart. Bilbz, what is the main mission for Bilbz there at this stage, where he has a nice looking hand, he has a bit of board clear, he still has his Gul'dan, but he hasn't drawn his Hooked Ravers, he hasn't drawn enough demons that he would like to. Where does Bilbz go from here? Because it's not a threatening board, and he doesn't really have a nice solo play here.
Well, basically, Bilbz really just wants to create a board that sticks, and he has to really utilize these spell breakers to get through the taunts. Also, playing this Gul'dan's fine, because you do get a 6/6 back, and you also open yourself up. You also open yourself with the Hero Power, which is really nice to start just dealing 3 a turn, healing it back. Although this also means that if he ever draws a Hooked Reaver, it's very unlikely they come down as 7/7s, since you do end up healing past 15 with the Hero Power a lot of the time.
Another Sleepy Dragon is going to be, should I say, 1 Sleepy Dragon is going to be played. So this does give Falcone a little bit more protection. We do know Gul'dan does go down, so this is where Bilbz can start using the Hero Power, picking off minions, start healing himself back up to full. And that's going to be the main thing for Bilbz, is getting the life total, getting it back for himself. And then he can start expending Hellfires a lot more freely. He doesn't have to worry about that. But then equally, you could say, if he's not at full health, then he can't play a Hooked Ravers, which is the big thing that he does want to try and get down for the most part.
So I think that it's looking very tough for Bilbz here, but there is one line that could potentially make him come back into this game. He just has to basically stick on board and regain board pressure until he draws the Lich King, and have the Lich King on pretty much an empty board that can't be dealt with, and hope it sticks for more than 1 turn, and just gather those Lich King cards.
Especially whenever Falcone has used a majority of his board clear, he's used his swipes, he's used 1 Naturalize, he needs to keep the other 4 as Hadronox. Yep. He still is hanging on to this Death and Decay. It's been here for quite some time since he played the Lich King. He's going to go for a bit more draw potential. This just fishing for either the Hookheart or the Hadronox. Still doesn't get it.
Yeah, he's just looking for the right moments to Deafening Decay. I wouldn't mind the Deafening Decay this turn, because it does clear up the board pretty nicely. You can combine it with the Hero Power, but he decided to go with the more card draw-centric route. You just use your branching path, since you have 2 anyway, to just try draw into the Oakheart or the Hadronox. But even if he draws one of those, he does have to draw his second Naturalize in order to activate it. Otherwise, it can potentially just be silenced.
Yeah, that's why we see the Spellbender being held, because Bilbz know that once that Hadronox comes down, he needs to get rid of that as soon as he can. But even if that happens, then he could, Falcone could just send it in. He can then go for the Witching Hour plus the Cube combo, which in turn still gets down the entire board of taunts. Lich King, which you said he was fishing for, does go down, so he's going to start generating these Lich King cards. I asked you what was probably the best card for Falcone to get. What's the best one for Bilbz to get in this situation?
I would say Army of the Dead's pretty good as well. As you can see, most of the spells have been drawn by Bilbz, so he only really has minions left in his deck, although he is running quite low on cards, so he might not even have that many good minions. We know that there's 2 Hook Reavers left, but I'd probably say Army of the Dead's probably one of the better ones to get, along with probably the Anti-Magic Shell after that. But Falcone actually does find a way of dealing with the Lich King. He didn't have it at first, but he used the Branching Paths to draw and then armor up, and to buff up the spellstar along with trading in the Sleepy Dragon, which is actually very fortunate because he did use a lot of his removal, such as the Naturalize, he used the Deafening Decay, or he used Swipes.
He's going to go for the cube onto the Sleepy Dragon, so that essentially nullifies the play for him going for the Witching Hour plus cube. We know that he only runs 1 cube, so that was very, very valuable for Falcone. I don't agree with that play.
I would say it's quite questionable as well, but I think it was fine given the context that he wasn't on board at the moment, and he did have to try fight for the board, otherwise he'd just get blown out by minions eventually. And unfortunately there was the second Spellbreaker, which makes it a lot worse to us, but Falcone could have thought there was no second Spellstone, and he could have just, you know, just thrown it out there.
So Falcone he's so reliant on 3 things here. 1, he has to draw his Hadrox, 2, he has to draw his Oakheart, and then 3, he has to draw his Naturalize. That's the only way he's going to be able to get himself on the board, because even if he manages to get his Hadrox, he can't cube it because he's just used it. So literally Naturalize is his only hope.
Yep. So I was talking about Bilbz being in a quite bad spot. Falcone is in quite a bad spot now after a few turns, since he has been drawing a lot of cards in his deck and he just can't manage to pick up the Hadronox. And he's going to eventually run out of taunts because this Warlock, this Definite Hero Power is just chipping away every single turn. And Bilbz does have a lot of damage in hand to end the game. As you can see, there's double Hellfire and there's Death Coil. It's potentially 11 damage from hand alone. But he doesn't, since he's used both Spellbreakers, he has to go through the Sleepy Dragon the tough way, just trade off all his minions. Use this Death Coil to finish it off so his 6-3 survives. And if Bilbz manages to get through this Primordial Drake, that might be the last line of defense. We do see the Hadronox here, but he can't play the Hadronox since he can't kill it off, and he just died to the minions on board.
Yeah,
Bilbz quite can't believe it.
No, he needs to get the Naturalize. We said this is his only out, is if he draws this Naturalize.
That's just game, because Bilbz
double
does
Hellfire.
Have double Hellfire. Even if he had 1 half Hellfire, he would have the Hero Power. Hero Power's his face, just for a bit of BM.
Bit of memes. Love a bit of memes.
But yeah, I actually thought that Falcone was in a really good position for most of the game, but he just didn't manage to draw his Hadronox, and he didn't manage to draw the second Naturalize fast enough. And although the early threats were dealt with pretty nicely by Falcone, he just eventually ran out of removal, and the Warlock just got there.
That's Hearthstone for you. If you don't draw your cards, you don't win the game, and that's just proving it as Falcone. That's twice that he has not drawn his Hadronox in time. The only way that I can see Falcone winning this is if he actually draws his Hadronox early on, or even gets his Oakheart. But like you said, this is going to be the Priest matchup this time coming out from Bilbz. Is this going to be more of a struggle for Bilbz compared to the Warlock that we've just seen, which he didn't really have a hard time with?
It's definitely going to be more of a struggle, as Priest does not have nearly as much pressure as the Warlock. And the Priest basically has a very linear game plan. You're going to draw all... You're going to try to get your Death Knight, you're going to try to get Alex, you have these potentially 4 Mind Blasts, you have the Holy Fire, you keep pinging them down. But as the Druid, you have all this armor gain, you have double Branching Paths, you have double Oaken Summons. It's just so much armor that you have to get through.
Not PogChamp. Priest is not PogChamp. That's the hashtag that Bilbz is going to go for.
Though this hand is actually pretty good from Bilbz. He does have double Twilight Drake. Twilight Drake is probably the biggest threat in your deck, potentially, that comes down early. And they can potentially be very hard to deal with if Falcone does not have the naturalizers. Even if he has the naturalizers, you are giving your opponent 2 cards, so just getting him closer to the Death Knight, getting him closer to the Alexstrasza. And if Bilbz does have those cards on curve, then it could be difficult for Falcone.
He gets the Shadow Visions early, so this is where he can start fishing for the Mind Blast that we know that Bilbz is trying to go towards. And if he manages to nail a Mind Blast very early on, that puts him in a very good position, gives him that little bit of confidence that he knows he already has one of the combo pieces sorted, which is essentially find a Mind Blast with your Shadow Visions. Looking at Falcone, he has this insane amount of ramp where he can potentially ramp all the way up to the Sleepy Dragon potentially on, I believe it'll be about turn 7, I believe. Quite possibly that could be where we see the Sleepy Dragon coming out. So having a 4-12 on turn 7 could be so big for Falcone and puts the pressure on Bilbz. And like you said, 4 attack minions is not a good thing for Priest. And we're going to see the Mind Blast being picked up.
Yep. So, Shadow Visioning for Mind Blast is definitely very key. And we don't see a wild growth on Falcone, but he does have double Nourish. And as you said, the Sleepy Dragon will come down quite quickly. He can also play down the Ironwood Golem next turn. And since he does have 2 armor, he can Nourish for mana and hero power, so to enable the attack from the Ironwood Golem. We see that Bilbz did in fact keep both the Twilight Drake, so he's just going to coin out one and probably just play the next one or the turn after and just start trying to chip down at the Druid and potentially not even need that Alexstrasza and try this end this game quite quickly.
This is a very strong curve from Falcone. You can see that he has the Ironwood Golem being picked up. That plays on 4. Then he nourishes on 5 hero power, allows then the Ironwood Golem to attack as well on the next turn. So strong from Falcone. This is a start that he needs, but he needs to get the Hadronox. He needs to find his key combo piece that we've been saying he hasn't been able to get out. This is probably the matchup which he's going to do it in, because Priest, like you said, doesn't have that big board. And particularly for Mind Blast Priest, having to go against armor is probably the worst thing that you could happen, where we've seen that Priest doesn't do well against Warrior, doesn't do well against Root, because they're the cards, or the decks, that have the most armor gain out of any others.
Yep, indeed. And Bilbz just going straight ahead and just get Shadow Visions for another Mind Blast. So he does have a lot of burn in hand. He also chooses to double trade, heal back up his Twilight Drakes to full, try to keep those on board as long as possible. And Falcone really just doesn't have any good ways of dealing with these Twilight Drakes right now. He can, however, play down the Dragon Hatcher next turn, and which could pull out most likely a Primordial Drake. It could pull out the Sleep Dragon. But one key thing is that the Hadronox was picked up by Falcone, but he doesn't have the Naturalize. However, he does have a Spellstone.
He also does have the Cube, so we can see another activation that we could see the Hadronox. Then the Cube gets rid of the Hadronox and stores it inside it, and then gets the big, massive top board. But before he even thinks about playing the Hadronox, he needs to get the Dragon Hatcher out, like you pointed, start getting the Drakes out, getting the Sleepy Dragons out. He also did pick up an Ironwood Golem, so that's going to be, again, another big issue for him, like we've seen last time, where he's not being able to pull out his Ironwood Golems using the Oakham Summons.
Falcone actually just decided to potentially play down the Hadronox right here and put Bilbz on not having the Master Spell. Because if Bilbz has the Master Spell, it's very, very strong right here. Though if Bilbz doesn't have the Master Spell and he only runs 1, in fact, and you've also seen him use double Shadow Visions, probably not going to pick up a Master Spell from either of those Shadow Visions. If this Hadronox sticks, he can just go Cube, potentially Witching Hour next turn. Although it only
what taunts does he get?
It only gets an Ironwood Golem, but just having the Hadronox be dead and getting to resummon another one with the Witching Hour is very huge. Yeah,
because typically the Witching Hour is going to be used for getting back that Hadronox that previously was destroyed. That's why we see Hadronox be a thing in Taunt Druid, because that card really did bring this deck into the limelight. So if he manages to pick up possibly the Naturalize, this could be a very strong play because then he could Naturalize and then keep the Witching Hour plus Cube combo later down the line.
But this line also means that he's taking a lot of damage. He didn't play down a ton, and Bilbz is just going in. He has both the Mind Blast, he just decides to Holy Fire this turn, and he just put Falcone quite low. And
is this game possibly?
This Hadronox really isn't doing anything. I mean, even if it dies, it only pulls an Ironwood Golem. So Falcone really just has to armor up this turn and play a taunt.
All he can really play is the Golem at this stage, which is the only taunt he has available. Yep. So it keeps him in it just for a little while longer, but we know even more damage is going to be pushed here momentarily because we still have the Drake and also the Ooze on board. But the Drake's going to be taken out by the Spellstone. But no taunt is going to go down on the side of Falcone. Yep. Instead, he's going to go for the clear.
So this 4 damage just connects, and there's the 3rd Mind Blast. How much damage?
That's
19. He's 2 damage off lethal. And this is just the fact that Falcone opted to play down this Hadronox instead of probably the Dragon Hatcher. So that extra damage from the Twilight Drakes were able to push. And this is looking quite tough for Falcone. He's already used 1 Branching Pass, so he's only got limited armor gain left in his deck. 1 more Branching Pass, the Oaken Summons, of course, but if Bilbz manages to pick up the Death Knight in the coming turns, then...
Because that Death Knight,
this could be quite sharp.
That gives 19 damage on board with the Mind Blast, because then you have 3 Mind Blast plus then the 4 from the Hero Power. But he's just going to go ahead and use 1 of them.
Yeah.
I don't believe he's going to use the other ones. Instead, he's going to go down for the double Pyromancer. This is going to be the easiest Drake that Falcone is going to play this entire series.
He can also trade off the Hadronox as well to ensure that he gets the 2 Ironwood, the Ironwood Golem back.
That just clears the board, gets a top on the board.
He's still dead to the Mind Blast, and he will be if he does pick it up, or even like if you pick Master Spells gives him another draw for Mind Blast, but he's only on 9 mana, so
maybe a turn too late there for Bilbz, as that would have been extremely good for the Hadronox.
So Bilbz is really just looking for the Death Knight here, because if Falcone just draws any type of armor gain, he basically can just out-armor the burn that's available from Bilbz, and there's no Death Knight in sight, so I think this turn Falcone's just gonna dig. Yeah, he does know that these Mind Blasts are a possibility. He did see 2 Shadow Visions come down, so he potentially knows that there could be 3 Mind Blasts coming his way.
Ideally, Branching Pass would be a really good pickup, because then that gives him the instant 12 armor gains.
Or potentially just Oaken Summons was fine too. Decides to push the damage in, resummon the Hadronox. This Hadronox dies, so all the taunts get resummoned.
This is really close. It seems to be back and forth. We know that Bilbz does have the 2 Mind Blast, still has another one in his deck as well.
Yeah, Mind Blast still lethal next turn if Falcone doesn't draw any armor gain, because he can only armor up to 16. And also, since Bilbz used the Psychic Scream, he's less likely to draw armor. Oh, Ferocious Howl. You can see the sigh of relief in the...
I believe he did just find thank you.
Yep. Bilbz obviously not liking this. He found the one line that was going to win him the game, just basically hit Falcone in the face, hope he doesn't have any armor, but that's not going to quite work out, since Falcone does run a lot of armor game, and eventually you are going to draw those.
So this essentially has flipped the game on its head, where we've seen Bilbz was in complete control, he had the damage. This is where Falcone can start taking advantage of this, because Bilbz, he's starting to draw a lot of his deck. He hasn't found the Anduin yet, which is the big key factor, like you've pointed out. Yep. And he also has a Lich King on board as well, so he's going to get a Death Knight card. If he gets Frostborn, that could push 5 damage each turn as well, which could be very big. Even a Mortal Coil could kill him back up, so he has a lot of potential here. And of course, like you said last game, Army of the Dead is also that main one that Falcone's trying to fish for.
Yep, that Naturalize didn't even give him that any great pickups. He did get the Twilight Acolyte, however. He can go Twilight Acolyte and potentially Cabal Shadow Priest, but he didn't draw that, so he can't even steal off the Lich King. I think Falcone is kind of realizing that now, that there's a possibility. However, Bilbz just doesn't really have any good plays here. He can't really kill off the Lich King. He can steal the attack, but that means the Lich King survives, giving Falcone another card. And if it's Death Coil, that means even more healing.
Let the pain speak to me.
Yeah, we said
Falcone, another sigh of relief. He's just happy there was no Cabal Shadow Priest right there.
Yeah, Death Coil's going to be the big one that he's also going to be looking for, because he needs that life total. And whenever Druid doesn't have any life total, unless he's running Healing Touch, which isn't going to happen, or unless Tree of Life has managed to sneak its way back into the meta, which, if he is, then this is clearly the wrong format we're using here in the ESL Prem.
Yep, and also the anti-magic shell ensures that the Cabal can't steal it anymore, and also it puts the Lich King out of range of the Death Knight. So this Lich King is going to continue to draw cards until Bilbz decides to pull the Psychic Scream button and put it back into Falcone's deck, but it's looking very bleak for Bilbz. No Death Knight, he only has 10 damage in hand. This Alexstrasza doesn't do anything, since it can either just heal Falcone to 15 or just put himself to 15, and he doesn't want to do either of those.
No, he not looking too good here for Bilbz. He doesn't exactly know what play he wants to go for. He's starting to scratch the head. He's thinking, do I go for possibly the Alex to get the 8-8 on board? Do I go for the Drake? Gets down then. The big taunt gets a bit of damage on, but it's still going to be able to keep the Lich King up, but instead he's going to go for the Psychic Stream. But that just shuffles back the Lich King in, and it just essentially gets him another 8-8 plus another Death Knight card.
Even more armor gain for Falcone. If this ever goes to fatigue, Bilbz is not winning, since the Psychic Screams are just recycling, recycling, recycling Falcone. And this armor's it might just be too much. He's back at 39.
That also reshuffled in the Ironwood Golem in, so he managed to get it back out with the Oaken Summons as well. So that was very unfortunate for Bilbz that was picked up.
Still no Death Knight.
No.
There's no card draw for Bilbz either. There's no way to draw that. Yeah. If the Death Knight was picked up in the earlier turns, this could be an entirely different game, because Bilbz could just keep chipping every single turn.
Put the pressure on, keep the pressure up. That's exactly what Priest wants to do with Anduin, is constantly have that ping. You look way back to Raza Priest, arguably one of the strongest decks that's ever been in Hearthstone. It always kept up pressure where you had to just keep pinging and pinging and pinging. And of course that was a free ping, not compared to what it is now, where it is just a normal, you pay 2 mana to deal 2 damage.
And if 30 armor wasn't enough, Falcone picked up another 6.
This is Druid in a nutshell.
Yeah. So Bilbz just going through the motions right here. Is there any way I can win this game? Maybe potentially if he creates a big board and somehow just plays this Alexstrasza down and it can't get dealt with. But Falcone does have the swipe and the Death and Decay, which clears pretty much any board out there.
More armor gain as well, coming out from the branching path.
Another 12, potentially in game 18 now. I think we're just going to see how much armor the Druid can gain this game. Yeah. Let's see how big this number grows to.
What other armor gain does he still have?
I think that's it.
It seems to be it. I believe it would be it, because that is a lot of armor.
We finally see the Anduin.
Anduin comes out
a little too late.
Too late at this stage. Does clear out the Drake, however. But
I actually don't think there's enough cards in Bilbz's deck for him to ping down Falcone. It's come to that point. And he also has to deal with the board in some way.
Yeah, because Falcone, he's just waiting for the Witching Hour to eventually be drawn. Then
he also stars the Lich King.
Lich King was shuffled back. The Ironwood Golem was also shuffled in, comes back out to play. Sleepy Dragon goes down, put more pressure on. And like you said, Anduin, the Battle Cry did essentially nothing, because they're 4 attack minions, not 5 and up.
Although Psychic Screen is quite good to deal with the board at hand, if it ever gets to that stage, the opponent's going to eventually draw those cards back, and it stalls, but it doesn't deal with the minions. As we can see here, Lich King comes back. It was a 4-4 on board before, it comes back as an 8-8.
Gets him another Death Knight card as well. this Falcone, he's just starting to draw exactly what he needs. Bilbz, he has no way of dealing with this stuff. Death Coil more healing as well.
Weird heal. But probably most likely his skill's going to be used as 5 damage to the face. This might just be lethal. We do finally see the third Mind Blast picked up, but it's really just too late. So how much damage is this even? 5 plus 4?
I count
Plus
21 damage, 22 damage.
20, it's lethal. It's 25. I think.
Oh,
no,
yeah,
20,
definitely.
I think it's exactly 24.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Didn't put the death and decay in.
Exactly, lethal from Falcone, and he takes the series. A big sigh of relief from Falcone. After being 2-0 up, Bilbz brought it back to a close 2-2, heading to a game 5, but at the end of the day, the Tundra manages to get a win.
Yeah, you said that it would come down to the Druid versus the Priest. Priest didn't have anything going for it in that matchup, just the sheer armor gain.
It was close at one point.
Yeah.
Those Twilight Drakes nearly did enough damage to push through.
Looked very scary in the early game, but then the flip came around whenever we've seen